a terrible week with the tragic death in our family, sudden death of a young boy, we would have, you could see how much God must have gone through to see his son go through that painful
sacrifice. That makes it even worse. I mean, it makes it even worse what he would, given that he could have simply forgiven. Well, forgiven us.
Well, we don't know. For example, there could have been a conversation between the Son and the Father in heaven before coming down, and maybe in that sense Jesus said, I will do it. And there could have been it's a hypothesis,
but that presupposes that it was necessary for somebody to do it. Why not just
it had to be somebody perfect. And
but why did it have to be
sin.
somebody sacrificed at all?
A life for a life.
A life for a life, exactly. What kind of a morality is that?
Well, I personally believe that helps us to live a good life and respect for each other, that I would stop if I was angry at someone from taking their life and letting it go further, but to forgive.
Well, I would forgive as well, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a life for a life, which is very different. But you had some other questions, didn't you?
Yes, we did indeed. Many have come in, so let me just quickly go through these. In your interview with Bill Moyers on the 3rd of December 2004 on PBS USA, Richard is quoted as saying, evolution has been observed, it is just that it hasn't been observed while it's happening. If evolution has not been observed while it is happening, then isn't your belief in evolution a belief by faith? And if so, how does this faith differ from the creationists?
Evolution is a process that takes a very long time for interesting things to happen anyway. It takes millions of years for really major evolutionary change to happen. You can see it happening. I mean, we do see it happening in a small way, but of necessity, what you can see during a human lifetime is relatively short, relatively little. And in my book, The Greatest Show on Earth, I've given some examples of that. But the burden of the question is, if you can't see it happening before your very eyes, doesn't that mean that you have to have faith in order to believe it? The answer is no, of course it doesn't, because what you see is the traces, the remains. You see the consequences of the evolutionary process, even though you can't actually watch it happening before your very eyes. It's a bit like, I've likened it to the process whereby a detective comes on the scene of a crime after the crime has been committed. Now, the detective can't actually see the crime being committed, but what he sees is fingerprints, footprints, bloodstains, scuffs on the carpet, all these sorts of evidence which add up to an understanding of how the crime was committed. So fossils are of that type. DNA is of that type. If you look at the DNA in different animals, compare, we've got it up here, beautiful picture you've got for the backdrop. If you look at the DNA of different animals, for a start, all animals and plants have the same DNA code, which is a remarkable fact in itself. And then there are minor differences in the actual sequences, the actual letters that are spelled out by the code. And if you look at those differences, you find that they form a perfect hierarchical pattern. It's a family tree. Now, this is massive, massive, massive quantities of evidence left lying around the earth in every species of creature that's ever been looked at is carrying around massive quantities of evidence in the DNA. Then there's fossils in the rocks, massive quantities of evidence, lots of other evidence.
Yes. I mean, to me, in the closing 40 seconds that we have, Richard, is that the complexities of the DNA, to me, speak of a very intelligent designer and not something that evolved over billions of years.
Yes, but you can't use the intelligent designer to explain anything, because you have to explain where the intelligent designer came in the first place. The whole beauty of evolution is that it explains how you start with simplicity and work up to complexity, to the illusion of design.
Richard, we're in the literally closing seconds. Would you kindly come back and talk to some of the other people that we have?
I'd be happy to receive an invitation.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.